Let me tell you about Essence. Essence wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble had a way of finding her, or so she told herself. When she met Darren, he swept her off her feet with charm and attention. He made her feel special in a way no one else ever had. The only catch? Darren wasn't exactly single. I'm stuck in a loveless marriage, he'd say, shaking his head. I'd leave her if it weren't for the kids. Essence knew it wasn't ideal, but his words tugged at her heart. She convinced herself that she wasn't doing anything wrong. After all, he said he loved her, didn't he? At first, their relationship felt magical, even if it was confined to late night phone calls and quick meetups during his lunch breaks. But as time passed, cracks began to show. He always had excuses for why he couldn't spend the holidays with her or why he couldn't meet her friends. Deep down, Essence knew something wasn't right, but she ignored the voice in her head. That was till one day when she stumbled across messages on his phone. Messages from another woman. A third woman. Her heart sank. When she confronted him, Darren brushed it off, saying, "She doesn't mean anything. You're the only one I care about." Essence wanted to believe him, but the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. After the confrontation, Essence couldn't stop replaying the events in her mind. She felt foolish, hurt, and confused. Why had she allowed herself to get into this situation? Sitting alone in her room one night, she started to dig deeper into her feelings. She thought about her mother, who had once been in a similar situation with Essence's father. Growing up, Essence remembered hearing whispers about how her dad had another family. Her mom had waited for years, hoping he'd leave his wife, only to be left disappointed and alone. Essence realized this wasn't just her story, it was a pattern in her family. Her aunt had a similar tale, and even her grandmother had stories of men who came and went, never staying, never committing. It hit her hard. She was repeating the same cycle. The women in her family had been taught directly or indirectly to accept less than they deserved, to settle for scraps of love instead of demanding the whole meal. Essence felt the weight of generations on her shoulders, but she also felt a spark of determination. She didn't want to keep living this way. She didn't want this to be her story anymore. But breaking the chain wasn't as easy as deciding to walk away. Darren reached out to her a few days later, apologizing profusely and promising he'd change. He told her he needed her, that she was the only person who truly understood him. A part of Essence wanted to believe him. She loved him, didn't she? But another part of her knew better. She couldn't shake the shame she felt. Not just for being with a married man, but for staying even after she knew the truth. Essence found herself stuck in an emotional tug of war. Should she leave him and risk feeling lonely, or should she stay and keep pretending this was enough? Her heart and her mind were at odds, and the idea of walking away felt like stepping into a void. She wasn't sure she was ready for the pain that came with letting go, but she also couldn't bear the pain of staying. The next time Darren called, Essence knew she had to do something different. Her hands shook as she picked up the phone. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady, despite the tears threatening to spill. Darren tried to charm her, saying, "Babe, you know you mean the world to me." But Essence didn't let him derail her. "No, Darren, you don't mean the world to me. If you did, you wouldn't treat me like this. I deserve better." He scoffed, turning the blame on her. "You knew what this was," he said coldly. But this time, Essence didn't let his words cut her. "You're right," she replied. "I did know. And now I know better." She hung up, blocked his number, and deleted every picture and message they'd shared. It was one of the hardest things she'd ever done, but she felt a small flicker of pride. For the first time, she had chosen herself. In the weeks that followed, Essence threw herself into healing. She journaled every night, pouring her pain onto the page. She started therapy, where she unpacked the generational patterns that had shaped her relationships. Essence started to understand that loving Darren was not the problem. It was staying in a situation that disrespected her worth. Over time, Essence started to feel lighter. She realized she didn't need someone else to complete her. She was already whole. The chains that had held her, families, women for generations, the chains of unavailability and heartbreak, were starting to break. Essence knew the journey wasn't over, but she felt stronger with every step she took. How would you address this situation if you were in their shoes? What steps would you take to face the challenge head on? Are you ready to start breaking generational chains in your own life? Find out by playing Generational Chain Breakers, the groundbreaking card game by LV Davis. Dive into real-life scenarios and discover how to overcome the patterns holding us back. Plus, enjoy the Generational Chain Breakers soundtrack, now streaming on Spotify and all major platforms. Start your journey today because breaking chains begins with you.
Don't tell me wrong from right, 'cause you in my bed tonight. So what, you have a wife, as long as I'm on the side. Well, no, baby, there you go, creeping with someone you know. Don't want squares or love circles, I'm good with this triangle.